Welcome to Relationship Mastery, a podcast for those who want to learn how to master the art of creating happy, healthy, and loving relationships. Please join me, Adey-Jones, and my co-host, Barry Selby, each Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific for a lively and informative conversation on everything to do with relationships. Welcome, everybody. We're so excited to have you join us today. And Barry is going to take us off today because we're going to be talking about last week we talked about dating and how to meet somebody, and now on the other end of that, there could be some breakups and some heartache. And Barry is an expert in this area, or so am I. But Barry is currently doing a program where he focuses on this, so he's going to take the lead today.
For me, one of the biggest challenges, and I want to reference actually Barbara DeAngelis, who I've listened to a few times. She actually created Making Love Work back in the 80s, 90s, and she also John Gray's ex-wife. So she's been in this work for a long time. I remember attending a lecture she gave about 5 years ago. And she was talking about the way people don't deal with their heartbreak. You know, they go through a relationship, it doesn't end well, they end up with this wounding inside, they feel heartbroken, they feel distressed, and they feel grief and everything else. But she said the problem most people do is they don't deal with it. They think the only way to fix it is to go date somebody else. Mm-hmm. And the challenge with that, the way she uses this metaphor is that if you imagine that the amount of love you have to give is like an ocean or a sea that you can basically express from. But when you don't heal, or if you carry around these wounds and emotional baggage, it's like icebergs on top of the ocean. And so the amount of love you can give gets smaller and smaller and smaller the more wounding you carry. Mm-hmm. So no matter who you date, the amount of love you can express is limited by how much you haven't resolved. So recovering from and dealing with heartbreak in a way that's healthy and whole, for me, because of what she said was so clear, is that if you don't deal with that, the ability you have to love is limited. So it's important for your own self to be whole, but also for anybody you date to be able to love them. You want to be unconstricted, is probably a better way of putting it, by having that work. So most people, and I was one of the people like this too, when I had a heartbreak, my thought was, okay, well, that's done. That's history now. I'll just move on to the next person. And frankly, it didn't work so well. I know from experience. And so in my own work, having learned this lesson and now teaching with my clients in the program I've created, which is basically called Love After Heartbreak, which is very simple, but it's true, is how to be able to love again once you've gone through the heartbreak. And what it comes down to really is that we don't give ourselves the dignity or the respect to heal those emotional wounds. We think we're better than that, or we should move on from that. Well, I know guys do that especially, but some women do too, is we don't actually look at that part and go, you know what, let me take care of myself. Let me do the work to heal that wound, emotionally speaking. Yeah. And let me be free to love again.
Yeah. I love what you're saying. It's so interesting. Gosh, Barbara, I did a ton of work with Barbara DeAngelis in the late 80s. I did many of her big programs. And
Making Love Work was that thing, yeah.
All the Making Love Work programs. I had no idea because at the time she wasn't married, but she was with one of the men that was helping her with her programs. I didn't realize she was married to John Gray. Oh, I may have been actually back then. I just forgot that.
Yeah.
So, what I want to pick up on what you said is so important. I mean, when I went through not this relationship I'm in now, but the one previously, I was devastated. The revelations that came out about the relationship were absolutely devastating to me. My 18 years were not what I thought it was. It was not. It was just heartbreaking. And many people will say to me, how could you be open to opening your heart again, to be in another relationship? And I work with people who, suffer from codependency and that same narcissistic abuse. And they say to me, no, I'll never be in another relationship. But what I always tell myself is that number one, I took the time out to heal. I took that 18 months to just really focus on the relationship I was having with myself. And that's the key to me. I knew how strong I was, how resilient I was, how I learned not to take it personally. It wasn't my fault that they behaved in the way they did and did all the things they did behind my back. But I know it didn't mean that I wasn't good enough. I was able to see that and just see that person acted as I said with my little snow globe again, they had thinking that had them act in a certain way, and to justify why they did what they did. But for me, when I saw how strong I was, how capable I was, how resilient I was, and how loving I was, I just thought I have a choice here. I could either move forward for the rest of my life with a closed heart, guarded, suspicious, jealous, all these things that I've never been. And I thought, why would I change who I am because of this other person's behavior? That had nothing to do with me. Right there. So I actually share with my people, I probably have my heart is probably wider open than it's ever been, because I worked on that relationship I have with myself, knowing how, knowing that I got my heart broken, but I was able to heal from it. It's like, hey, I can handle that. So even if I get my heart broken again, I know I can handle it. It hurts at the time, but I do bounce back, and I am incredibly open-hearted and trusting and loving in my relationships.
Which is wonderful for your fiance.
Yeah.
but I speak that for a second, and that's one of the things is the other part also is a lot of people, when they've been hurt and had a broken heart, bad relationship, break, everything else, there's that sort of fear of getting back on the horse again, so to speak. There's almost like, don't want to get back in the water because they don't want to get hurt again. So there's a reticence and a certain fear level. And the fact as you said, the fact you now know, and most when work with me, same thing too with my clients, when they know that what happened to them didn't kill them, but also didn't destroy them.
Yeah.
So that actually they can heal from it and recover from it and be stronger than they were before, and at the same time be more open and more loving than they were before. Because part of this also, the work I do with clients, and you do the same thing, is heal a lot of that past baggage, that old stuff that we never did resolve in the first place.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's a way through to get to the place where you can clear everything and become a cleaner vessel for love. I'll put it that way. It sounds fancy, I know, but it's kind of what I mean, is you get to love more fluidly, more joyfully, and more easily than you did before.
Yeah, that's it. It is. It's such, and I love what you're saying, because it's not just healing from the baggage of that last heartbreak, but it's going back further. It's like, what led you to being in that type of relationship with somebody that might be, in my case, and in the case of the people I work with, that were narcissistically abusive? What got you to that place? So it's not just recovering from the narcissistic abuse in that relationship. It's like, I got to do the work to find out how the hell I remember that I even said that to myself. It was like, I got to find out how the hell I got myself into this before I move on. And it was the best work I've ever done in my life. It cleared me. It cleared my patterns, my habitual patterns of who I was attracted to, why I was attracted to them, what I was trying to, as we keep saying, the two of us always say, what did I think that person was bringing? It was completing me. What did they have that I believed wasn't in me? So that to me, again, that's the work. That's the recovery of self-discovery, of knowing that we are perfectly beautiful, whole, not damaged, not broken, don't need to be fixed. When we come into this world perfect, we just get a lot of thinking that layers on top of it that we start believing, and it's not true. It's just thought moving through us.
That's the thing. The work we do, it's truth is, we're not just fixing the current issue that you're dealing with. We go much deeper than that in our work. And really everyone on the planet's doing the same thing, is that we all go through a period of time where we're raised with beliefs that aren't really the ones we wanted, the ones we were given. And we take those on as the truth. And then we wonder as an adults why we keep making choices about relationships that aren't working for us. And to not only just heal those wounds from that relationship, but to unpack and release the beliefs that no longer serve us, so we can be free to love as we know we can, fully, again, cleanly and openly as we want to, is a gift that many of us have never had.
Yeah.
So what we get to do, both of us get to do this work. And what I love is that we get to touch people in a way that they live in a life that's more free and whole as well, because it's needed.
It's occurring right now, speaking, I'm thinking that I've had, and me too, I will 100% put my hand up. I was a what do they call them? Serial monogamous. I was jumping from relationship to relationship. And if somebody had said to me, stop dating for a year, take a break, I know my response was like, no way. I love being in a relationship. And clearly it took an extremely bad breakup for me to just go, oh, I can't, it's too much. Like I said, I got to figure the hell out why I'm in this mess. What got me there? So, but that was an extreme case to get me to that point, to take that time out and to really focus on the relationship I have with myself. But I've had other friends of mine where I can see that they're constantly in these challenging, difficult relationships, and then breakups and heartbreak. And when I say to them, why don't you just take a time out, take that year off, and they react like I used to react, like, no way, I love being in a relationship. And why I'm pointing that out is there's a fear of being alone and being with yourself. And it's so interesting that fear stops people from really, really clearing out the cupboards, I would say, and really.
Well, in response to that, because I stand on the other side of that one. I've been single now for 16 years, and I'm totally fine with that. And in my relationship history, there'd be probably 1 or 2 years in between relationships. So relationship need wasn't strong for me in that sense, like having to be in a relationship all the time. And in my current position in my life, is having been single 16 years, because I've been focusing on my work and what I do in the world, because it's what drives me. And one of the things, little teaching on the side for one of our future episodes about masculine and feminine polarity, is for the masculine-hearted man, having his purpose be fully alive and thriving is what fills him up. So he doesn't need a relationship necessarily. Having one is great, but if he really is aligned to his work, his mission in the world, then he's being filled up by that, not by a partner, which makes him a better partner to be with, because he's not so invested in being immersed in that relationship. And it makes a partnership much more easy. And for me, that's one of the things I'm clear about. Not only that, but because of the work I do, I'm kind of clear about what sort of person I want to be with. The work I'm doing is important enough to me. She's got to be confident and also trusting the work I'm doing as well.
That's a great comment there, because I totally agree. When I was in a challenging relationship that was abusive, narcissistically abusive, I couldn't think straight. All my energy was going on the relationship, how to handle it, how to walk on eggshells, how to avoid the minefields, all of that. And I had nothing left for myself. And by taking that year off, or 18 months actually, really focusing on myself, what I wanted in life, because that was like, I couldn't even answer that question if somebody asked me. I was like, I've got to keep everybody else happy, of course, that's what I want. There was no tapping into what I really wanted. And that's what's so beautiful about what you're saying, because I think it goes for, maybe men feel, I'm not sure, I'm not a man, I can't comment, but I know for sure that for me, once I started spending time on my own, on myself, developing my passion, I was always a painter, I did all these things. But again, as I say, my mind was occupied by trying to keep somebody else happy. But once I was alone and it was about keeping myself happy and obviously my children, I knew what I needed. I needed a relationship that gave me the same space to be myself as being alone. And that's what I have. We are both in this beautiful relationship where we allow each other to be ourselves. There's no demands on each other. We know we're committed. We know, there's no question. But I was very clear that I wasn't going backwards. I was never going to go backwards, only forward, in the sense that I was going to have a gentle, loving relationship. I didn't want to be madly, insanely in love anymore. I wanted to be gently in love, which is what I have. Beautiful.
You mean a healthy relationship? What a concept.
Yeah, really. I know. And I remember somebody saying to me, "Was he madly in love?" I said, "No, I'm gently in love." And no more madness. I didn't want madness. So I love what you're saying there. And it really is important to have a strong sense of self and not lose yourself in those relationships.
That's the thing also. And we talked about in previous episodes about the codependency piece. And that's the thing, is when we look for that relationship outside us to make us feel okay, we're never really whole anyway. Should say we're ignoring the fact that we're whole. And we're delusional. And so this conversation we're talking about is so vital to let the people understand that, male or female, to really know who you are, to know thyself, so to speak, so that you really confidently live your life fully, and then find somebody who can honor you in that place, and they honor themselves the same way. That is for us the elevation of relationship to a much higher quality of connection, of not mad in love. It can be gently in love, or just be committed to love in a way for ourselves and each other. Whichever way you want to call it, it's really important, I think, for people to really honor themselves in the relationship, even when they're single or in a relationship. Because to me, that's the work that we all need to do, is to be greater partners for ourselves in life, and then with the partner we have outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And we're talking here right now, like, you either have a relationship or you don't. Well, you have tons of relationships. It doesn't, just because we're not in a romantic relationship doesn't mean we're not getting completely satisfied and fulfilled by our other relationships. And that brings another point up, I think, when a lot of people look to their partner to satisfy all their needs, which is such a burden to put on another person. It's like, I always say, it's like my glass heart here. I always say, it's like, when we say to the other person, here's my heart, take care of it. Oh, you're not taking care of it very well. What are you doing with my heart? You know what? You take care of your own heart. You know best what your heart needs. You share your heart with another person, but you don't make it their responsibility. Because once we do that, we're just setting the other person up to be criticized. And I mean, I know I'm being simplistic here, and of course we care for each other's heart, but the responsibility, the ultimate, like, no, I know what my heart needs, and only I really, really know what it needs, and I will express what it needs, and hopefully you will meet me there. But we just abandon ourselves sometimes in a relationship and say, it's your responsibility to understand what I need and take care of me. And that's just so unfair to do to another human being, whether it's male, female, male, whoever. It's just unfair to put that burden on another human being.
Absolutely. And that's the biggest teaching, perhaps, in what we're about as well, is that we got to be true to ourselves and really live ourselves. It's nothing about know thyself. It's also about to thine own self be true, beyond being honest, but be true to yourself in terms of the love you give yourself, and to really take care of your own heart. Because even in the wedding betrothal, it's like, there's till death do us part, and in sickness and in health, there's no partner that says, really, I'll take care of me, you take care of you, and we can do the best together that way. Because that really should be what fundamentally comes up in relationships, is each partner is responsible for their own participation in the relationship. Not making the other person accountable for or responsible for how they feel. Because that's the codependent trap that people fall into.
It's very, I agree. And it's that sort of two whole healthy people coming together to create a third entity, which is really the relationship. It's that, that's how we come in, not with that dysfunction as you described. So
the thing is that dysfunction, unfortunately, is the norm, because of what Hallmark movies and the way life is taught tends to be the pattern we inherit, because our parents did it and we ended up doing the same thing. So in a lot of ways, what we're teaching here is maybe even I won't say revolutionary, but evolutionary about relationships. That really relationships don't have to be that paradigm that used to be. We can, in fact, stand on our own 2 feet as a couple, where the relationship is that third piece of the puzzle. That it's not 50-50, it's 100-100, as I took about in my book. That each part is fully present in the relationship. The relationship is 200, not 100% only. So we actually fill up ourselves and then each other. Much better way to do it.
Absolutely. And the other thing I wanted to mention was when part of our suffering at the end of the relationship is some of us feel like that source of love that we were receiving has ended. And we think that love is actually coming from outside in, like it's a source that fills us up. And what we don't realize is that actually those feelings of love, those feelings of all those things are coming from within us.
Yes.
We have created that feeling. It's coming through us via our thinking about the person we're with. Now, do you notice in a relationship, like some days you're like, oh, they're so wonderful, I love them so much. And then the other day it's like, I hate them, can't bear them, And my partner, Hootie, is the steadiest, easygoing person on earth. So I know when I wake up some mornings, thinking, it's because of me. Because he hasn't changed. He's the same. He's lovely, steady, easy guy. I'm sure he has days when he doesn't like me either, but he doesn't express it. But I'm just saying we need to understand that those feelings are generated within us. They're coming through us from our own being, which is made of love. We are made of love. And when I'm not saying that other people on the outside don't impact us, they do for sure, but they cannot make us love them or hate them. That's what we're doing inside of us, depending on how we look at them, how we're viewing them. And that's also not to say that some people's behavior can be interpreted as a bit more hateful than others or unloving, but ultimately it's our feelings are totally created.
The challenge with that, or let's just say the piece about that is, we oftentimes in a relationship get to a place where we react to what the other person does or doesn't do. And it's happening regardless of romantic, it could be any friendship or connection, even business relationships, where someone will say something, do something, and we react to that without thinking. And when we can learn the mastery of how to respond by saying, let me sit with what happened and then decide what to do about it, versus jumping right in and reacting, getting upset and fuming feelings. There's a cartoon or a meme that I said a few years ago. I remember seeing about this couple sitting upstairs into the couch, and she's the thought bubble of her head is, he doesn't love me anymore. He doesn't say anything to me. He just simply grunts when I talk to him. I don't know what's going on. And the speech bubble over his head is like, is it the steering or the suspension on my motorcycle that's not working? It's like a totally different thing. And I'm messing up a little bit, but the reality is that we don't know how the other person thinks, and we take it personally. Versus, what are you thinking? What's going on? Asking questions, being inquisitive, and also being responsive to what happened versus reactive, because we do fall in that trap so often of looking at somebody and we project onto them what we think they're thinking and then take it personally when we don't even know if that's what they were thinking in the first place. How crazy is that?
Oh my God, definition of insanity, the new definition of insanity. What you just said, it is. It's working towards being responsive, not reactive. Reactive is in the moment, a rush of feeling, intensity, and we react. And again, it's assumption, it's assuming we know what the other person's thinking and doing, and that it's I was like that for years. Oh my God, I took things so personally. I didn't even understand the concept of how not to take them personally. I was so convinced they were personal. It was insane. I would think, again, going back to my father for a second, as a small child, it was like, I for not 1 second did I ever think, well, he just was unable to love or whatever it was. It was like, no, he didn't pay attention to me because I wasn't good enough. If I'd been good enough, of course he would have paid me attention.
That's the story you told yourself,
and that's what I ruled my life by. This I have proof that I'm not good enough. Oh my God, it took me years to go, oh, wait a minute. Actually, no, he just, for whatever reason, in his mind, his little thought bubble we keep talking about, that little thought bubble had sort of rationalized that it wasn't important to have me in his life or to acknowledge me or anything. Just that's the way he was. It wasn't personal. And what I also want to just comment on before we end for today is what we do is when we take things personally, we feel justified in attacking the other person. Now, they may have just broken up with us because it wasn't a good fit. But sometimes our egos are so wounded that we have to vilify them, find fault with them, put them down. But when we know that we are all created equal, nobody's less than or better than another human being, there's just not a good fit, we can just separate with respect, not with this having to put somebody down and blame them and make them bad and wrong so that we can elevate ourselves. That's just pointing to the fact that we do not know the absolute magnitude of who we are and how incredible we are, because that's coming from ego, low self-esteem. It's not coming from that place of, gosh, I have so much, I'm such an amazing human being, and it just wasn't a good fit. So
if only we recognized how amazing we really are as human beings, as spiritual beings having an experience. Right?
Exactly.
Using that languaging. And that's the thing, is that we carry this delusion around in the world that we'll be loving when somebody loves us, and we'll be happy when somebody's happy for us.
Mm-hmm.
And if we aren't in love, or if we've been heartbroken because somebody left us and deserted us, our self-esteem goes through the floor because we feel like somehow there's something wrong with us. Rather than the truth, which is, just to be clear and emphasize that, is
Mm-hmm.
that when somebody breaks up with us, it's because they broke up with us. Yes, there might be something that we didn't do, quote, correctly, that they didn't like, so we can reflect on that, but not in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
In that moment, the first thing you remember is who you are is worthy, who you are is deserving, and who you are is okay. That what happened didn't destroy you. It may feel like you got destroyed, but again, that's the ego sense of self that's being knocked around because it thinks it's only thriving when it's in a relationship. When we
Mm-hmm.
honor and remember who we are, like you were saying, how magnificent, how amazing we really are. And yes, are there things from that relationship you can take with you that you can sort out, rearrange, change behaviors? Maybe look at what you said to the partner, things you can do differently going forward. That's great. But do it once you've done the emotional work to heal and remember your fullness, your magnificence, because that's the most important piece of all, is remembering who you are, because you deserve love and you are loved to start. So start there.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And what I wanted to add to that too is that yes, we are these magnificent. When I say magnificent beings, I'm not just talking about it as in the physical sense. I'm talking about that on a spiritual level. We are all, as I said, all equal. Nobody's better or less than. And the other thing, I think I love what you said about, if there is a breakup, there's always something for us to learn. I'm thinking of Michael Singer when he says that, everything that happens to us is for us. It's not against us. Even
Exactly.
a breakup. I can look back at my relationship, which one of them that I categorize as, narcissistic. But if I'm honest, I look back at that, I see so many areas where I'm like, you know what? I'm not carrying that into my next relationship. I was very aware of it. And it's owning your own part. It's not to blame yourself or to shame yourself, but it's to objectively go, what did I learn in that? What do I want to carry forward? There's some things you want to leave behind, and there's some things you want to carry forward. But every relationship is an incredible teacher. We learn so much about ourselves, whether they last a lifetime or they last a few months.
Indeed. I mean, the last relationship I was in is what put me on this path in the first place. I could always say, like, if I bumped into her again, I would thank her for what she did, because her vitriol, well, let me change the wording. Her way of phrasing things, just to be clean on it, and her way of being so clear in my face about what I didn't do right was so needed for me to hear it that way, because that's what put me on the path and put me in the journey of learning to do things differently, that now leads me to the work I've been doing for the last 15 years. So there's gifts in every relationship, so no matter what form it is. The question is, are you willing to look at them and take them with you?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a beautiful note to end on. So I'm loving these chats, Barry.
Yes, more next week. We'll do some more.
We'll catch up with each other next week. So have a wonderful week, everybody.
Take care of yourselves. We trust you enjoyed this episode and invite you to share this with your friends and loved ones. In fact, please subscribe to our Relationship Mastery podcast. That way you'll get each new episode fresh and shiny as soon as it is released. We'd love to hear from you as well. So go ahead and enter your questions and comments at relationshipmastery.show. Take good care. We will connect with you in our next episode of Relationship Mastery.